Heidi ho, gamers! I'm some nerd with an opinion, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today, we're going to be starting things off with a little interesting claim that I'd like to make. I'd like to talk to you about why Spongebob Squarepants is literally the greatest cartoon to ever be made. Now, I know what you're thinking. Hey Dum Dum, this is the stupidest thing you could possibly say. SpongeBob is a stupid cartoon. It's nothing like how it used to be. Let me start off by saying that yeah, you're right. In your own Squidward-like, nihilistic, silly-willy, sad grown-up way, you're definitely right. But I'd like to explain to you why not only do I hold the opinion as to why SpongeBob SquarePants is the greatest cartoon to ever be made, but it's also an indisputable fact. Now, literally hundreds of YouTube video essays have gone into excruciating details as to how SpongeBob came into existence, so I'm going to skip over that. We all know the riveting and, quite frankly, inspiring tale about how Steven Hillenburg quit his job as a marine biologist to try and make a delightful cartoon about a silly sponge who lives in a pineapple under the sea. I won't bore you with the details. What I will bore you with, however, is proof that this cartoon, this silly, wacky, ridiculous cartoon about a sponge who lives in a pineapple with his meowing pet snail, whose best friend is a starfish, and he works as a fry cook in a restaurant that's literally a crab trap used by fishermen, all wrapped up in a pretty undersea bow inside a town called Bikini Bottom, is one of the greatest pieces of animation to ever be made, and possibly ever will be made. I know that this is a huge claim, what with incredible pieces of animation like Into the Spider-Verse, The Lion King, WALL-E, Avatar: The Last Airbender, Adventure Time, and more. How then can SpongeBob, of all things, possibly be better than these incredibly crafted stories about love, sacrifice, rising above life's challenges, growing up in an unforgiving world, and pure, unrelenting humanity? Well, let me show you. Chapter 1: Characters and how they interact with the world they are put in. Obviously, the key to making any story good and engaging, first and foremost, is the characters. If we didn't like Tony Stark fundamentally as a character, we wouldn't have cared enough to watch his journey throughout the MCU, and wouldn't have even made it to Avengers Endgame, let alone cared about his death, if we did. With this in mind, let's talk about the characters in SpongeBob. SpongeBob himself has always been an incredible example of writing and characterization when the show is at its best. SpongeBob at his core is a grown man who, rather than allow the busy, boring nature of adult life bring him down, decides that he wants to approach every single day with positivity and optimism. He strives to make sure every single day is the best day ever. In episodes like Pizza Delivery and Help Wanted, his can-do attitude and optimistic nature usually help him get what he wants, whether it be a job at the Krusty Krab or get the pizza delivered to the customer. However, despite the fact that his core trait is his optimism, he would get upset all the time, and very reasonably so, in fact. Whenever the writing for the show's at its best, you can see him sometimes slowly driven to the edge of insanity while still trying to approach it with his normal attitude, challenging his way of thinking and making the scenario and interactions within fresh and interesting. For example, in the episode Can You Spare a Dime?, Squidward's behavior post quitting the Krusty Krab and living in SpongeBob's house literally drives SpongeBob to a fit of screaming rage, which leads him to strangle his boss and demand that he give Squidward his job back. Name one other children's show that isn't based on superheroes where a character possibly strangles another for any given reason. Yes, cartoons have naturally relied on slapstick since their inception, because they're aimed at children, and I guess that's what children have always found funny. But the fact that a show literally uses literal strangulation as a punchline is incredible. There are plenty of other characters in this show, too. After all, there's an entire ecosystem to explore in Bikini Bottom. From Mr. Krabs' penny-pitching habits, that at times would be overshadowed by his genuine love for his restaurant, employees, or family, to Patrick's goofy yet lovable nature that would sometimes be overshadowed by bits of genuine insight and intelligence that would be the catalyst for SpongeBob and friends to overcome the conflict of multiple stories. From Sandy's scientific and logic-centered nature that would be set aside for a fun-loving side that's arguably just as goofy in SpongeBob and Patrick, to Plankton's struggle to steal the Krabby Patty formula that would be sent to the back burner to show the fact that it's not entirely out of maliciousness, but rather from a deeply human desire to pursue his dream of running a successful restaurant. Anytime you turn on your television or sit down at a movie, you're at least somewhat aware that you're going to be spending a long time with these characters. And they have to be engaging for you to care about their struggles and their stories. And the thing is, SpongeBob, when the writing's at its best, is a textbook, incredible example of well-written characteristics. Chapter 2: Storytelling and the Importance of Well-Crafted Narratives. Now, yes, good characters are great and all, but what good are well-written characters if there aren't any just as well-written stories to complement the interesting ways you can set up their interactions? Now, what makes a story interesting? I would argue that it all depends on the way that the character interactions drive it forward, and how it presents a conflict that, in a sense, can act as its own character that interacts with the rest of the characters and challenges them fundamentally throughout the course of the tale. For example, in Captain America Civil War, the conflict wasn't so much a concept like a force of nature or a lingering existential thought or crisis, however, more of a conflict of ideologies. Captain America believing in fighting for individual liberties, and Iron Man believing in fighting for sacrificing the few for the many. In SpongeBob, conflicts drive stories almost always through character interactions. Character A does or says this, character B reacts this way, hilarity ensues. Now this can seem stupidly simple, granted. However, I would like to bring up the phrase, less is more. In a world where storytelling seemingly must be deep and meaningful and profound to be considered good or worth your time, SpongeBob SquarePants has always stuck to a very simple and direct approach to storytelling. Like I said, it's always very one note, yet the stories are always memorable. In fact, as a society, we're constantly sharing memes about that one episode of SpongeBob where blank, and we always instantly know what's going on. Let's take a look at some really particular memorable episodes. Help Wanted. SpongeBob applies to work at the Krusty Krab. Band Geeks. Squidward has to turn the citizens of Bikini Bottom into a competent marching band in just 5 days. Pizza Delivery. SpongeBob and Squidward deliver a Krusty Krab pizza. And so much more. You see, these stories, yes, are very one note, and not at all that complex in their themes, if any are even present. Yet the plots of the episodes, and even the minute details like lines and inflections, stick with us as a consumer base. For example, in Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy 2, when SpongeBob and Patrick discover the frozen body of Man Ray, they chant the ever iconic
What is it, trusted sidekick? Man Ray!
How about the Krusty Krab jingle that SpongeBob exclaims as he and Squidward trek through the comedically endless wilderness outside of Bikini Bottom? You know the one I'm talking about. You're probably singing it right now. If the sheer, memorable nature of the plots and details within the greater story isn't a testament to the monumental quality of the cartoon, I don't know what is, to be honest. Chapter 3: Cultural Impact. It is no secret that SpongeBob is literally everywhere. From novelty cups to mugs, t-shirts and socks, blankets, video games, to 12 seasons of its cartoon, as well as not one, not two, but 3 cinematic releases. The only other children's cartoon property that I can think of that has that many cinematic releases is Scooby-Doo, and it took way more time to get out that many movies than it did for SpongeBob. Now, yes, longer-running properties like Peanuts and Scooby-Doo have had lots and lots of feature-length films, but in the context of Peanuts, only one of them was released cinematically. All the others were aired on television or made direct-to-video. Hell, the Spongebob Squarepants Broadway musical, which is fucking amazing, by the way, you should check it out, is one of the most successful Broadway shows to be made off of an existing IP. It's currently more popular than the likes of Your Good Man, Charlie Brown, American Psycho, Evil Dead, The Addams Family, Carrie, and Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark. Now, the whole reason that most of these shows were critical and financial failures is a lot more of a larger can of worms that I could possibly save for a future video. However, SpongeBob, despite the huge odds stacked against it, has found success in basically every single medium that it's decided it wanted to dip its toes into. In fact, as a property, SpongeBob in the year 2018 made Viacom, the parent company of Nickelodeon, $13 billion in merchandise alone. That doesn't even count for ratings. It's such a profitable franchise that it's literally dwarfed and outlasted other cartoons from the same era across multiple different TV channels that many would argue hold more quality. It's outlasted and outperformed the likes of Danny Phantom, Avatar The Last Airbender, The Marvelous Misadventures of Flapjack, Chowder, Justice League Unlimited, Invader Zim twice, Regular Show, Adventure Time, Kim Possible, American Dragon Jake Long, and so much more. It's only ever lost its throne to the Fairly Odd Parents when the show first aired, but it quickly regained its throne and then went on to outlast the Fairly Odd Parents in its relevance and popularity. Now, let me address the elephant in the room. Yes, the show did experience a lengthy period of, quote, declining quality at the start of season 4 with the departure of Stephen Hillenburg as showrunner and the promotion of Paul Tibbitt to showrunner. However, when Stephen Hillenburg returned shortly before his death, the show regained a lot of its lost charm, and it's doing just fine again, which is honestly a breath of fresh air for such an incredible brand. Conclusion. It's obviously no secret that I might be a bit biased on this topic. I was born barely a year after the airing of the first episode in 1999. I'd be lying, however, if I said that I've been watching my entire life, as I obviously once was an angsty preteen who thought, that shit's for babies. I want real programming. However, in my older late teen years, I've learned to appreciate the simple things in life. And ultimately, I think that's what SpongeBob is all about. Like I said, SpongeBob chooses to be happy as often as possible. Yeah, like any other dude, he gets sad, upset, confused, and frustrated. Yet he chooses happiness and positivity. Even Squidward, who's constantly portrayed as a nihilistic straight man, will indulge in some little things. From a cake, a cup of tea, or jumping into a box and embracing his imagination. Mr. Krabs genuinely loves his restaurant and making money. To him, that's the little things. Patrick just loves being SpongeBob's best friend. He doesn't need to do or be anything else. That makes him happy. Everyone's definition of the simple things is completely different. You and I relax and enjoy life in incredibly, vastly different ways. And yet I can guarantee that we can all sit down, relax, come together, and enjoy the silly willy antics of our favorite sponge who lives in a pineapple under the sea. And that, ladies and gents, is why SpongeBob SquarePants is the greatest cartoon to ever be made. Hey everyone, thanks for making it to the end of the video. I'm not exactly sure that I'm going to have any consistent upload schedule yet. I'm just kind of starting out and I've got a bunch of stuff going on. But I wanted to say Happy New Year. Let's hope that 2020 is a good year of good videos. And also, if you want to interact with me, suggest ideas for videos, you can hit me up on Twitter. The link for that will be in the description. I really don't have anything else yet, so we'll start with that. What do you say, guys? Alright, gamers, peace out.